Hello, this is Christian Okoye, former Kansas City Chiefs. You are listening to Grilling Truth.
Welcome, everybody, to, what is the name of this show, Steve? I forgot. No, I'm kidding. Welcome to, this is a joke because of the Indiana basketball show last night, but welcome to Survive and Advance, brought to you by Replenishing Care and Technologies, the future of sports medicine. If you want to check out all the products they offer, you could go to thegrillytruth.net, click on the banner at the top of the page. I'm your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I want to welcome in my co-host, a member of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, 1981 national champion, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
I think I'm doing better than you, Mike. I think you're doing too many shows. You spread yourself a little too thin. You need to take a step back and look at things from 10,000 feet for once in a while instead of doing 5 shows a night.
I'm going to hang
up. Just a popular guy.
Let's see.
Okay.
All right. So
that might be the best part of this show. Who knows?
It might be. You never know. Sometimes it is. Let's go ahead and we're going to preview the college football and the NFL that are coming up this coming weekend. And the one thing I do know is the headlines tell me that the ratings have come back up for the NFL, Steve. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I definitely think it's the ability of the quarterback, the scoring of the game, the rules. This is exactly what I think the NFL wanted to do. By protecting the quarterbacks the way they did, they basically have given the quarterbacks carte blanche to throw the ball, stand in the pocket as long as they want to. More and more teams are just not even trying to go after the quarterback and hit. And if you leave those guys 4 or 5 seconds back there, all those quarterbacks in the NFL are good enough to pick any defense apart. And I think that's exactly what's happening. It's kind of similar to what the NBA did with the shot clock, college did with the shot clock, what baseball did with juicing baseballs or corking bats. I think that the NFL has done this by protecting the quarterbacks and protecting them in such a way that they're just tearing defenses apart. The scoring averages are up entirely. Games are moving along faster. And it's a formula that they did. It's a marketing formula. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. I'll bet more probably than protecting the quarterbacks. It's probably more designed to speed up the game and make the game more attractive and entertaining. Everybody loves a 45-43 shootout between Drew Brees and some other great quarterback.
Matt Ryan.
Rather than watch Matt Ryan. Okay, we'll throw Matt Ryan in there. You can name any of them. I mean, put anybody in there.
Well, they actually played a game like that 3 weeks ago, so I figured that's why I'd throw Matt Ryan in there.
Yeah. I was trying to think who they played, and they beat somebody 45-43. I know, but you're seeing a lot more of that. I think it's a designed play by the NFL, and it's working. Ratings are going up. Games are more fun to watch. Red Zone's even more fun to watch. Red Zone, you're doing a lot of split screens on Red Zone now, because there's so many people in the red zone scoring all the time now.
So I read an article today from Breitbart that said that it was because there was less protest.
Well, coming from Breitbart, that's about what you'd expect, wouldn't it?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't think it's less protest. I think it's more exciting football. And the reason the numbers went down the last 2 years is because the football wasn't as exciting, and whether it's from rule changes or whatever it is. Plus, I think it helps that you have teams like the Chiefs and the Browns that people really didn't know, especially with two young blood, is all I got to say. Baker Mayfield,
right.
Patrick Mahomes. There's so many young superstars now coming up that you didn't have a couple years ago. Deshaun Watson. I mean, people, and you can see it in the NBA. The NBA has taken off the last few years because it's branded young players that have a huge social media presence. And I think that the NFL, they haven't done it to the extent that the NBA has, because it's hard to do with a player with a helmet and a face mask on. There's not as much facial recognition. But I think that they've kind of taken a page there. Plus, the new blood, I think, has helped immensely because, let's face it, unless you're the New England Patriots, you're tired of seeing Tom Brady. You're tired of seeing Aaron Rodgers unless you're a Packers fan. Now you get guys, Patrick Mahomes, who's throwing balls left-handed, Baker Mayfield, who you had on Hard Knocks, which I think that was huge for that too. Plus, maybe it's just all the Cleveland Browns fans started watching again, and that's why the ratings came back up.
Yeah, I think that all plays into it. I think you're almost going to be able to maybe look back at this somewhere down the road and say, this is another one of those great classes. What was that great class? That Elway and Marino?
1983.
Was that 83? Yeah. You're almost going to get into another situation where this class of quarterbacks that have come out this year is almost going to start to rival that class. And we know how the NFL took off as those quarterbacks all matured and became great. All of them, most of them are in the Hall of Fame or will be in the Hall of Fame if they aren't there yet. So you're almost seeing that again too. But I think the NFL really has not had any controversy this year, so to speak of. The take a knee thing has kind of faded away to the most part. There's been some instances, but it's not a negative thing. I mean, has the NFL had anything negative happen to it yet this year?
No,
really?
I don't think so. Not
no,
compared to
what's
happened in the past. Nobody smacked their girlfriend around that was pregnant or anything like that.
I didn't want to say that. Yeah, but there's been no domestic squabbles, no drug-related issues, so to speak of. Edelman, a lot of the guys that got involved with the PEDs and stuff are all PEDs are all
football,
coming back.
You're always going to have guys doing the PEDs, and right now college football probably has the bigger issues, which we'll touch on a little bit. Let's go ahead and look at the game tonight. The New York Giants, who are 1-4, will play the Philadelphia Eagles, who is the defending world champions. Do not look like they're going to defending that world championship this year. I think the biggest two keys to this game tonight are Olivier Vernon, who is the Giants' best edge player, will make his season debut tonight. And their pass rush has been non-existent this year. They have a league-worst 6 sacks. Their adjusted sack rate of 3.6% is also last in the NFL. And the other thing is, when you look at the Eagles, their passing attack has been mostly around Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, who is a rookie out of, I think, South Dakota or North Dakota State, one of those Dakotas. But I think the Giants' pass defense against the tight ends this year, they're 7th, which is a huge difference. But I think overall, Steve, I like the Giants in this game just because I think the Giants are desperate. They're at home, and it's a short week.
Yeah, I agree. And also, a little known fact here that on all the previous Thursday night games so far, the home team has won every game. So this would be the 6th week, and the Giants are playing at home, so that gives them – I think it's a toss-up game. I just don't think this team's gelling under Carson Wentz yet. I think they will. But
I don't think the problem's been Wentz. I think the problem is the offensive line.
Been Wentz.
The offensive line's gotten old, and the defense is not as good as what it was last year.
Yeah, and I never really considered Philadelphia to be a dynasty team like New England anyway. I think that they're one of those teams that just had a great year. They caught the right breaks. Foles came in and did a magnificent job when Wentz went down. And I don't think we looked at Philadelphia as a team that was really going to be in a position to repeat. They lost a lot of people off that squad from last year. And I think we're all still thinking this is the Super Bowl team from last year, and it's really not. So, the only thing I give them credit for is they're still in a very weak division, that NFC East, which gives them a chance. And it really still, even at 1-4, it gives the Giants a chance because the Giants, to me, are the most underachieving team in the NFL. With all the talent they have on that football team, I mean, they've got a great young running back. They've got arguably one of the best receivers in the game. They've got a tried-and-true, statistically 2-time MVP, Hall of Fame, going to be quarterback in a Manning. I mean, they have all the ingredients to be a great team. But historically, New York just starts off so slow that they dig themselves such a hole that they can't climb out of it.
Yeah, but with this division, there's no hole because right now, if the Giants win this game, the worst-case scenario is they're a game out of first. And the best-case scenario is the Redskins lose this week, and they go to 2-3. The Cowboys lose, they're 2-4. The Eagles, if they lose, the Giants are 2-4, and the Giants are 2-4. So I mean, it's possible if they win this game, they're going to be a half game out of first, at worst, a game out of first, or a game and a half.
Yeah, which makes this an exciting game. Yeah. Which makes this an intriguing and exciting game because it is for position. You know, I mean, even though you're talking about 1-4 teams against a 2-3 team, it's four playoff position. So you don't always have to look at the record. So it's going to be a fun game tonight. But I've always been a fan of the Giants, and I always root for them. I seem to always pick them, and I never get it right. But I would pick the Giants in this one tonight too. Playing at home.
Go ahead.
No, that's it.
I think there's two other marquee matchups this weekend, and we're going to talk about the first one Sunday. I think the main game during the day is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a rivalry game. The last time these guys played, it looked more like an alley fight than a football game on Monday Night Football last year. When you look at this game, what do you think the key is?
I think it's Roethlisberger being able to match, and it's their coach being able to Mike, what's Mike's last name?
Mike Tomlin.
Yeah. Being able to coach this team and get these guys playing together. I just don't think Pittsburgh has played together. I think the Le'Veon Bell thing has had a bigger effect on this team than we all think it has. I think the Bengals are if the Bengals can maintain and play as they've been playing all year, I think they'll prevail. Where's the game at? Is it at Cincinnati?
Yeah, it's at Cincinnati.
Yeah, and that's a big advantage there. But Pittsburgh is a team that scares me because they seem to always find ways to win games when their backs are up against the wall. And right now, clearly their backs are up against the wall. So I'm going to predict Pittsburgh in a slight upset in this game. I just don't know Cincinnati. I don't know. I know it's going against the grain because I know you're definitely a Bengals fan. I don't think it's against the grain
because, the Bengals are only like a 2.5 or 3-point favorite.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh finds a way to pull this out. What do you think?
I think
You're the Bengals expert.
I think the game comes down to James Conner. If James Conner runs for 100 yards, the Steelers win. If James Conner doesn't, I think the Bengals win. I think on the Bengals end, Carlos Dunlap, and I think a guy that has to be huge in this game for the Bengals to win is Carl Lawson, who had a great rookie season last year and has not played that well this year. Because I think with Big Ben, if you could get the pass rush on the edges to keep him in the pocket, I think you beat him. If you let him get outside the pocket, create plays, he beats you normally. So if you could get the edge with Lawson and Dunlap and have Geno Atkins coming up the middle, I think they could control that. But when you look at the Steelers, the two games they won and the game they tied were the games where James Conner played well. The games they got beat were games where James Conner didn't do much at all. So I think the game comes down to that. And then I think it comes down to the Steelers' ability to defend the Bengals' passing game, which I don't think they can. I mean, they haven't been able to defend anybody else's passing game. They did Atlanta last week, but I think Atlanta's a team that's coming close to packing it in anyways. They're demoralized and dejected and defeated.
Right.
The 3 Ds that you never want to be. I'm taking the Bengals, but to me the game's a toss-up, and it's a toss-up because of what we know about the Bengals. And it's not that the Steelers play well in these situations. It's that the Bengals have a tendency not to. And if the Bengals can overcome themselves, they're the better team. They win the game. If they can't overcome themselves, they lose the game, are probably an 8-8 team by the time the year's over. I think this game is monumental for both teams. If the Steelers lose, they're the equivalent of 3 games out, almost halfway through the season. If the Bengals lose, they've got to go to Kansas City the next week. So you could very easily find yourself 4-3, and then they've got to go to Baltimore still. They got to go to Pittsburgh still. They got to go to Cleveland, which I don't think the Browns are a really good team, but I think they're going to cause everybody trouble, especially division rivals at home. So I think as weird as it sounds, the winner of this game will win the AFC North this year.
I don't think it's a far-off prediction. I think they're clearly the 2 best teams in this division, or this league, whatever it is. Division, I guess it's a division, whether divisions and leagues, I can't get them all straight.
It's a division, Steve.
Division, right. All right, okay. All right. So what the biggest weakness Cincinnati has in my eyes is the coaching. And I think that's why Cincinnati fails to win. That's why they fail. Right, but it's why the Bengals fail to win these games as often as they should, because I don't think talent-wise, and really the Bengals offense has shown no signs of cracking anywhere along the line. I mean, they put points on the board every week, and they've played extremely well. Dalton and Green right now, I've said it before and I'll say it again, maybe the one or two best combinations of quarterback receivers in the league right now. Maybe not overall, over the history of the game, but for this period of time early into this season, they are as productive and effective as anybody. But it just seems that the Bengals always do find a way to lose these really critical games in terms of looking at the rest of their schedule, as you said, and then playing an opponent like Pittsburgh who tends to win these games. Pittsburgh just wins ugly and finds ways. Roethlisberger just finds ways to pull him out of a hat. I think that's what's made him a great future Hall of Fame quarterback. So
right.
I think it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up, I believe. But I think for coaching purposes, I would say that Tomlinson's a little less of a bad coach than Marvin.
And they both suck. All right. Let's go next up to the New England Patriots hosting the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Actually, they're going to play at the same
one.
time as Game 2 of the ALCS. What's your take on this one, Steve? Do you think Kansas City keeps rolling, or do you think they run into a brick wall finally?
I think right now New England once again has established itself as the best team in the AFC. I think that New England throttles them pretty good, and I say throttles them pretty good. I'm not sure it's going to be a Colts New England score, anything like that. But I think that with Edelman back, Brady looks sharp as an attack. You've got Belichick there, and again, we know Andy Reid's a great football coach. I don't want to take anything away from him, but he's not Bill Belichick. And with the situation that with already having 2 losses, being just 3-2 with New England, I just think that there's no chance for Kansas City. Kansas City's ready, poised, and ready to be beat.
All right.
They've won 5 games. I just, I don't take anything away from Kansas City. I just don't. I think we'll find out how good they are real quick because I think that New England is once again established itself as the best AFC team out there, and the odds-on favorite to get back to the Super Bowl again.
I agree. I don't know about the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl, but they're odds-on favorite to win this game.
Get back to the Super Bowl.
It's basically a rookie quarterback going up against Bill Belichick's defense. The defense has been terrible this year. But I think Belichick will figure out ways to get this done. I think Gronkowski, I think the Patriots are going to score a lot of points. I don't think the Chiefs' defense is very good. I think it looked good last week because Blake Bortles sucks. I expect the Patriots to win this game. If they don't, though, then we may have a changing of the guard. I mean, because then you're going to have to probably beat New England and go through Kansas City to win, which they could do. But when I look at it, I think the Patriots win this game. We're going to transition. What?
And notoriously, Kansas City tends to be a bad playoff team anyway. I mean, hell, half the reason the Colts won the Super Bowl is because they did well in the playoffs because they got to go through Kansas City so many times. So I don't know, but I think New England clearly is establishing themselves again as AFC dominance.
All right, next up, we've got college.
300 times.
We got college football, which you love, especially this year, since your team doesn't suck.
We're not going to predict the Colts game.
Okay, because I'm actually picking the Colts in the upset.
Yeah, I am too. Who do they play?
The Rams.
No, they play the Jets.
Yeah.
They play the Jets. They play
a rematch of Super Bowl III.
Is T.Y. Hilton back yet?
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's Andrew Luck. He's going to score points. I'm just picking the Jets or the Colts because they've got Andrew Luck. And I like Sam Darnold, but he's not Andrew Luck.
All right, I agree. All right, that's enough said on that game. 1-4 versus 2-3. That's a meaningless bowl game right there.
All right, college football. I know something you love to talk about. But college football, when I look at this, my question is, how in the hell is Alabama number 1? Can you tell me? I mean, because when I look at this...
Because I'll tell you exactly why they're number 1. Because it's all done with opinions. And it's all done by people's opinions of looking at what people, past history in the eyes of many people is the greatest predictor of the future. Alabama has no reason to not be number one. They're undefeated. They've coming off defending national champions. You know, it's just the way the system works. And that's why the big fallacy about the polls, and who cares about the polls really? Because the polls don't mean anything until the tournaments are played. Now, it means a little bit more in football than it does
means a
basketball.
lot now. I mean, when you look at this, though, Steve,
because
they've got Alabama number one. And I'm not saying they're not the best team, because talent-wise they may be. But if you look at it, they blew out Louisville. They blew out Arkansas State. They blew out Ole Miss. They did beat Texas A&M, who's ranked 22nd in the country. That's their one solid win. They beat Louisiana Lafayette. They blew them out. They blew out a bad Arkansas team who got beat by a bad North Texas team. And I don't see how that could be ranked number one. I could see how it could be number 2 or 3. But to me, Notre Dame's number one. You're going to say I'm nuts, but when you look at it, Notre Dame beat Michigan, who's ranked 14th. They beat Stanford, who was ranked 7th, by 3 touchdowns. They beat Virginia Tech by 22 points, and Virginia Tech was ranked 24th. So they've beaten 3 teams that I think are really good football teams. And then they beat Ball State, Vanderbilt, and Wake Forest, who are probably better than the other teams that Alabama beat. I think Notre Dame's credentials to be number one are better than theirs. And I also think this. I think when you look at it, I think Georgia's are too. Georgia is a team that beat number 24 South Carolina. They beat a decent Missouri team. Blew out Vandy, blew out Tennessee, which aren't big deals, but it's still more than what Alabama did. And on top of that, I think Ohio State's done more. I don't think Ohio State would beat Alabama, but we have to rank these properly. And, I mean, you can't properly rank a team that has beaten nobody over a team that's beaten 3 top 25 teams. Or, I mean, if you look at Ohio State beat Penn State at Penn State. That is far and above anything that Alabama has done this year. They also went to TCU and beat number 15 TCU. So when I look at it, you may say, well, Alabama's the better team, though. But we don't know that because Alabama's played nobody yet. And we got teams like Notre Dame and Ohio State that have.
I agree. I mean, I want to believe that Notre Dame could be ranked number one. I guess I just don't put a lot of faith in Brian Kelly and what they do in big-time games, playoff games where everything's on the line. They're kind of cruising right now, and you know they found a good quarterback, and they look as sharp defensively as I've seen them look in a long time. And I agree with your assessment entirely that when you look at who Alabama's played versus who other teams have played, that's why I just don't put a lot of faith or credence or any real excitement into the polls. I mean, it's a popularity contest. Alabama's been there so long, and they haven't been beaten very much, probably the least of anybody in the last 10 years. And it's a popularity vote that they stay there. And I think everybody wants Notre Dame up there, and I think everybody – I'm sure the NCAA and the TV people would love to see Notre Dame in the BCS. Is it still called the BCS?
No. It's the college
football
playoffs. College bowl system.
Yeah, college bowl. Yeah. So, but we'll see. You know, but your assessment is exactly right. There are other teams that have played tougher opponents so far this year. That's why I think there needs to be an expansion in college football to allow more teams to play rather than just 4. Yeah, but I don't think Alabama would be Alabama if you let Alabama's profiting entirely off the fact that only 4 teams come in. And Alabama is one of the4 best football programs in the country, and they've got a great football coach who knows how to win.
They're the best football program in the country, and that's not even close. But we're just talking about this year, and they scheduled nobody. I mean, they scheduled the Louisville game probably a year or 2 ago when you knew Lamar Jackson was going to be gone, so you knew that was going to be down. What about Central Florida? They're still undefeated. Do they ever get a chance? Should they get a chance?
No.
So they don't deserve a chance.
I don't think that they're one of the top 4 teams. Even undefeated, I don't think.
Right now,
I don't
what
think.
they've done for the season so far is more impressive than what Alabama's done.
Sure.
I mean, they blew out Pitt, who just almost beat Syracuse. Pitt, who beat Syracuse, is a really good team. At the end of the year, they'll beat 2 top 25 teams. So you really think that a team that goes 2 consecutive years undefeated doesn't even deserve the opportunity to prove themselves?
Oh, that's hard. That's really hard because in the end, for Alabama, they'll have had to have ride through the SEC, which Central Florida will not have had to ride through the SEC. I know they're playing touch teams right now, but they're still eventually, for Alabama to get into I keep calling it the BCS. That's what I know it as, the playoffs. They're going to have to win the SEC, their section of the SEC. Well,
they didn't last year. They didn't last year. They didn't even make it to the SEC championship game, and they were allowed in last year.
Okay, yeah.
Because Auburn played Georgia, I believe it was, for the SEC championship, and both Auburn and Georgia beat them.
I think the argument here again is that, and you bring up another good point. If a team goes undefeated 2 years in a row, how can you deny them a chance to play for the national championship? That's a great question, Mike. And I don't have any more argument.
And the thing right now
why
is
Alabama.
This. If you look at Bama's schedule the rest of the year, they are scheduled to play number 13 LSU at LSU. I don't think LSU is that good anyways. They do play Auburn at home, but Auburn will probably be out of the top 25 by then. I mean, so there's no ranked teams for them to play either. If you look at Central Florida, right now they would play 2 ranked teams at the end of the year in Cincinnati and South Florida, who are both in the top 25. And right now, that is pretty much the same thing Bama's going to do. Now, Bama will have to play in the SEC championship game, where they're going to have to play Georgia, who's ranked highly. But the only thing that'll lead to is Georgia and Alabama both getting in the college playoff.
All right, let's cut to the chase here. If you were the NCAA, you were wanting to make money off TV ratings, would you rather have Central Florida in?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, when you look at it, what's the thing that made college basketball take off? It was the Cinderella. It's when they expanded the tournament and you started getting the Indiana States in there, or the Arkansas Little Rocks upsetting Notre Dame in 1985 or 86. It was upsets that did that. And the thing right now is this.
Yeah.
Central Florida is a team that beat Auburn last year. I mean, they beat them on a neutral site, which was probably not neutral because they played in Texas, and there's probably a lot more Auburn fans there than Central Florida fans. You got Mackenzie Milton, who is a Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback for Central Florida, who I think will make an NFL roster next year as a quarterback. And I don't think you get anything bigger than UCF playing Alabama for a national championship. To me, that's bigger than Alabama against Ohio State, because I see Alabama, Ohio State all the time. I've never seen a college football championship game where they've let one of the little guys have a shot. And you're going to be talking about a little guy that's won 24 straight games going into that game if they pull this off.
Yeah, and that's why class basketball did so well in Indiana.
Yeah,
start letting little guys win championships. Nobody gives a damn.
Yeah, but
nobody gives a damn when little teams win championships.
But they don't?
Well, then you do that by expanding. No, tell me who the 5 state champions were in high school basketball in Indiana.
That's my fucking point, Steve. The way you're doing it is making it class basketball. Because you're making it so only these teams are allowed to play for the main championship. It's the same thing the IHSAA did. By not allowing Central Florida, you don't allow Milan in 1954 or Plymouth in 1982.
I'm not allowing anything to happen.
But the point is this.
Telling you that
your point is makes no fucking sense. I mean, when you look at this, you're telling me that not letting Central Florida in the playoffs is the same as the IHSAA. And it is.
I'm saying
but it's the opposite.
The analogies you were using about people love the upset.
Yeah, they do. And that's what people want to see.
They love the upset. Are you done?
Maybe. We'll see. Go ahead.
Okay. People love the upsets in March Madness for the games, but in the end, they don't want to see Arkansas Little Rock playing Boise State and UC, Baltimore, Maryland, Baltimore, whatever it is, in the Final Four. They want to see Duke, North Carolina, UCLA, Indiana, Kentucky, Kansas. They want to see those teams duking it out for the championship.
All right, then why were the highest
the
rankings for the NCAA basketball tournament in the last 10 years? Why was the highest ranking game Butler against Duke?
I don't know. Just, people were watching Butler's run.
Yeah, because Butler was Cinderella.
Butler, well, they were the underdog in the game, but pretty much anybody's an underdog that plays Duke in a national championship game. I don't care who you are.
Okay, so you think Butler is the same kind of underdog that Kentucky would be?
I believe if Duke was playing Kentucky and for the national championship, Kentucky would be the underdog.
Yeah. What's that got to do with
it? They're because of coaching.
So, but the comparison of Butler and Kentucky is worlds apart, Steve.
I didn't bring that comparison up. You did.
I know, because you wanted a comparison. You told me that people would rather see Duke play Kentucky.
I see your point about UCF, and I'm not opposed to it. I'm just telling you, realistically, it's not going to happen. Not when you have teams like Clemson sitting there, Notre Dame sitting there, Ohio State sitting there. You've got Washington, a Pac-12 school. They're going to play to their Power 5 conferences teams. I don't think if USCF goes undefeated again, you'll have the same argument that you had last year, that any team undefeated should get a chance to play for the national championship. But I think in the end, it'll be a team from the SEC, a team Notre Dame, if they stay undefeated, it'll be possibly an ACC team, a Big Ten team.
All right, real quick, the TV rating for Duke and Butler was up 31% over the year before when North Carolina played Michigan State. And those are two big-time programs, and it is still the highest-rated college basketball game since 1997.
Okay, all right.
Bring that up. People like.
The real argument here, Mike, is just expand the playoffs.
But then they cheapen their bowl system, which is where all the NCAA big shots make all their money and get all their gifts.
Yeah, well, they're caught between a rock and a hard place, then, aren't they?
No.
I mean, it really doesn't determine the national champion. It doesn't really determine the national champion. To me, March Madness doesn't really determine the national champion unless you let all 300 teams enter the tournament. I mean, you pretty well get it right with 65 or 66, 67 teams, however many they let in now. But do it the old way Indiana high school basketball used to do it. Every team starts and plays, and we just whittle down to the championship. One and done, all the way through. There's no reason college basketball shouldn't do that. It would take another weekend, one more weekend, you could pare it down. Because there's roughly 300 Division I programs. You whittle them down back down to your 64 after the first weekend.
Yeah, but with college basketball, don't you make a 30-game season then pretty much not matter?
Well, you're playing for conference championships and things of that nature.
Yeah, but who cares? I mean, the only thing that matters is winning a national championship. And see, the thing is this. With all these smaller programs, like a Northern Kentucky University or an Oakland up in Michigan, is the thing that makes those games matter is they're trying to get enough wins to get into the tournament. And if they don't, they get a conference tournament with a chance to get in. So my thing is this. The week before the NCAA tournament, the conference tournaments are basically an extension of the NCAA tournament, and everybody does have a chance. If you're Long Island University, you're still playing for a chance to qualify for the NCAA tournament in your conference tournament.
Sure. I see that argument too. Yeah. I mean, basketball doesn't need to be fixed. Basketball is fine. Allowing 65 teams to play is really all you need to have. You get a good representation, but 4 teams needs to be fixed. It needs to be expanded to 8 or 16 teams or something along those lines, to where you can find a slot for a UCF and let the people like you and me quit yakking about it and just let them play. And let them go out and play against Alabama and see if they can beat them. or if they get beat, or if they get drummed, or they realize that they're playing such weaker opponents day in and day out, which I don't think they are. But I don't think that they're going to let them in again if they go undefeated again this year, especially not if you got Notre Dame going undefeated. And if Alabama
I think
stays
especially
undefeated,
if Alabama and Georgia are 1-2, and then they play in the SEC, they're going to put both of them in again.
Well, I mean, even if that happens, you got Notre Dame, you got Clemson, and you got Ohio State.
So now the question is this.
So where does UCF fit in those 5 guys?
I think this is the way you possibly get them to expand it, is the fact that maybe you have Alabama. And, well, the question is this. If Ohio State goes undefeated, Clemson goes undefeated, they almost have to be in. If Washington doesn't lose again, they're probably the odd man out. And then you get the 2 SEC schools. But you've got a Big 12.
So Notre Dame's left out.
You got. That's what I'm getting to. That's what I'm getting to. You've got also,
okay, I'm sorry.
In the Big 12 right now, you've got an undefeated West Virginia team ranked 6th. You've got a number 5 undefeated Notre Dame team. It's possible West Virginia, Notre Dame, Clemson, one of those SEC teams all go undefeated, and then maybe they could leave Alabama or Georgia out. But really, this is a year where you almost have to have 8 to know who the best team is. And I think you always have to have at least 8 to know who the best team is because, as I said, Central Florida, handled Auburn in whatever bowl game it was, the Cotton Bowl or whatever last year. And that's the same Auburn team that a few weeks before handled Alabama. So I don't think we could – that's the main reason to me why you can't write them off. It's not like – what was that team with Colt Ryan, Hawaii? They go undefeated. They let them in the Sugar Bowl, and Georgia beats them like 51-10. That pretty much ends the debate whether they were good enough to compete with the best teams or not. But Central Florida keeps winning. And after a while, continuing to win has got to be paid attention to. And the only way I think they get in, though, is if you get a Notre Dame, West Virginia. If 4 of these teams get upset, you might have a small chance that they'll let them in as a number 4.
I think we would all agree if Notre Dame goes undefeated, they're in the playoffs. There's no way they're going to keep Notre Dame out if they go undefeated.
They wouldn't want to keep Notre Dame out.
I don't think they would keep Notre Dame out.
Well, I don't think they'd want to. It's Notre Dame. They're not going to want to keep Alabama out. Exactly. Well, I mean, their dream.
It's Alabama.
Their dream is Notre Dame, Alabama, Ohio State, and who? Notre Dame, Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia, I think, would be their dream.
Yeah, or bring in Washington from the West Coast and Washington.
But that's not their dream because they don't care about the Pac-12 schools.
Time change. I'll tell you, being out here, time changes a bitch in terms of getting viewership because you got everything comes on here at 5 o'clock, 4:30 and 5 o'clock. I mean, it's Thursday night football tonight starts at 5 o'clock out here.
Well, the other thing that hurts Washington is they lost to Auburn in a very close game that they should have won. But the problem since then has been Auburn's lost a couple times, and now they're ranked 24th. So your best win doesn't look as good as it once did. Now, they do get to play number 17 Oregon this week. But, I mean, with the Pac-12, there's just not enough depth in that conference to get you to the promised land. So, I mean, they're probably going to be left out again. And like I said, with Notre Dame, I still expect that they'll lose a game they shouldn't lose and take themselves out of contention anyway.
I agree with you there. Yeah, they will. They'll do it every year. They'll lose one game where it's like, wow, did you lose? And it could be this week. It could be Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's a good team. They beat Syracuse in overtime
last week. It's a good football
week.
team, yeah.
And Notre Dame is coming off an emotional win at Virginia Tech where they looked great. But we've seen it, even back to Lou Holtz in the early 90s. I mean, how many times you remember Tennessee had come in, kick a field goal, and upset them? Boston College did it a couple times. Navy's done it numerous occasions to Brian Kelly. So I expect that to happen also. I don't think they'll lose to Pitt this week, though. I think they'll get that win. Steve, we got anything else to cover?
No, any big college games you want to just kind of look at them? You got number 2 Georgia going against 13 LSU.
Yeah, I think Georgia's going to run through them. I don't really see anything there. The only game that really strikes me as interesting is Michigan and Wisconsin.
Michigan, Wisconsin, yeah, 12 and 15.
Yeah, and the other thing is this. Michigan, I mean, they've only got the one loss, and it was to Notre Dame. If they were to run the table now and beat Wisconsin, beat Ohio State, and then beat Wisconsin again in the Big Ten championship game or Iowa, they just put themselves in a conversation too, and that is another team with a huge national following.
But they have to go through Ohio State to do that, don't they?
Yeah, but there's no reason why they can't, because Ohio State, they're in the same division. But if they went out and beat Ohio State at Ohio State, because their only loss was non-conference, so that Ohio State-Michigan game right now would decide the Big Ten if they stay undefeated, and Ohio State stays undefeated. So if you get a win against Wisconsin, a win against Ohio State, and then a second win against Wisconsin, or say Iowa sneaks in and takes the Big Ten West,
then you got to look at Michigan.
Then Michigan's got to be in the conversation, especially if they beat an Ohio State that's undefeated at that time. So there's another team that throws it in.
Yeah, and Michigan's loss came first game of the season.
Yeah, and it was at Notre Dame by a touchdown.
Is that right? But yeah, it was a close game. Exactly. So that being the first game of the season, Michigan definitely is in the hunt still to be considered, but they've got to get through Ohio State.
Well, I don't think they're serious. They got to get through if they get through Wisconsin, I will take them serious. But until then, I mean, because I don't know if they get through Wisconsin or not. I think they're a better team than Wisconsin. But for some reason, something seems to be blocking Harbaugh in Big Ten games also. Anybody that didn't hear it last night, the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show, which you can hear on thegruelingtruth.net, myself, Steve Risley, Colin Hartman, welcome Rob Johnson to the show, former Indiana basketball star, to talk about his career, trying to make the NBA now, talking about his time at IU, especially with Coach Miller last year. So make sure you go check that out. Steve, we got a golf show today, or is that tomorrow?
It'll probably be posted tomorrow, knowing our efficient producer and how he gets around to
producing. Like next Thursday. Quit bitching or your show will never get posted. We may just cancel that show if you keep talking all this crap to me.
I didn't mention any names. I just said our producer.
All right. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't rip on our producer because you could produce it yourself. Nobody stops you from doing that.
I do kind of co-produce the show.
Yeah. The only thing I do is download the show after you send it to me, Steve. You can go on the internet and download for free Audacity, which Audacity should now be a sponsor of the Grueling Truth. But you can download that for free and actually edit that show in there, and it's ready to go. Just thought
all right. I did not know that.
Lucas Weiss will be with Steve Risley on the golf show today. That will probably be posted either later tonight or early tomorrow morning. Make sure you look for the golf show tonight at 9:30 Eastern, hopefully live. We've had some technical issues with Skype lately with 3 people on. But me, John, and Jeremiah will be on for Inside Boxing Weekly. Make sure you check that out also. You can follow us at The Grueling Truth, at Grueling Truth on Twitter. Go find our Facebook page on Grueling Truth also. And also on Twitter, at Survive the Magic, if you want to go directly to this show. That it, Steve?
That's all I got for today.
All right, guys, so make sure you catch us tomorrow where we will talk the 10 greatest sports franchises of all time with Lucas Weiss. For now, we are done. I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. Be listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.